I really want to focus on not so much, drugs or alcohol or guns or anything like that. I want to focus on despair and why that's a problem in our society. And I really think that's something that draws everyone apart. We try to put race on things like that, and we try to put demographics around all these problems, but that's just our human nature. That's because we want to understand them. And really, we're not going to understand them until we start understanding ourselves. And that's something that I really wanted to overshadow and make a priority of this film, is that, we're in despair, we're in trouble, and there's not going to be a solution until we start pointing the fingers at ourselves.
Now, people are running around talking about locking up guns, but the far more dangerous thing is a medicine cabinet. You can't look at any death coming through this office in a vacuum, because deaths don't occur in a vacuum. They occur because of people's decision making.
I think a lot of parents don't want to believe anything negative about their kids.
So what do we do when we have pain? Well, if I have pain, I'll take an aspirin, ibuprofen, or something like that. But if you have the kind of deep pain that there's no hope, you're going to take something much stronger. I've been Dauphin County coroner since 1990. I am not a physician, but I am a forensic scientist and a nationally certified medical legal death investigator. Part of that, I also had investigative experience both with 385th Military Police and 52nd CID. So I have a combination of some science and also some investigative procedures. And since forensics is essentially science applied to law, it works out pretty well. We would be a hybrid office here in that I am the coroner, but I also work as a board-certified forensic pathologist, and we work in tandem. Ultimately, the final decision on the certification comes down to me putting together the investigative side of it, the autopsy side, and coming to a conclusion of two things. The first one is cause of death, which is the mechanical reason why someone dies. And the other one is the manner. How did that happen? And that's suicide, it could be homicide, it could be accidental, it could be natural. So those are the manners of death. So you have cause and manner. So it doesn't matter whether it's an ME's office or a coroner's office, ultimately the same thing is, can you determine the cause and manner of death with reasonable certainty? And can you then testify in court, that's where they apply to law, through chain of evidence and documentation and scientific theory, how do you defend that cause and manner of death that you've just put on a death certificate? And that's ultimately what occurs either in court or in civil litigation or criminal litigation, our findings and how well it was documented. When we come to what is now being called by the Center for Disease Control an epidemic, and that is a heroin epidemic, an opioid epidemic. I can safely say, and I can tell you, I could spell out the figures. They occur because of how we as a society look at different issues. They occur because of structural things such as decline in middle class, decline in education over 30 years, lack of job opportunities. All these things have impacts on how people behave. We live in quote unquote a free society, supposedly a republic. Os Guinness, a writer, said in a free society, there's two things. One is the structure, the law, in our case, the Constitution. And then the other thing is the buy-in. The buy-in to say, and it's ironical, but this is what free societies deal with, and this is why they're short-lived, by the way. The buy-in to the Constitution is, I am going to restrict my behavior so that as a group we can all be much more free. We don't need to legislate things because this person has bought into a moral agreement with his neighborhood, his community, his state, his country, and saying, no, we have a consensus here, and in this consensus we've come up with these are appropriate behaviors and these are not. Now, not only does this filter into just the day-to-day worker, but it also factors in then to law and to our economic system, which we call capitalist. But if you look at it from a historical point of view, we haven't been capitalists for about the last 100 years. Now let me go through and tell you how that impacts why I'm seeing dead kids and dead baby boomers on the stainless steel tables over there because they've OD'd either on heroin, opioids, or a combination thereof. Right? Benjamin Franklin was asked when he left the Constitutional Convention, what kind of government do we have? And he replied to the lady, he said, Madam, what we have is a republic if you can keep it. Every one of the founding fathers knew we were on tenuous grounds because most free societies don't last long. But what he was saying is that if we don't have this buy-in part, it doesn't matter what the laws are. Capitalism originally was conceived of as a system where somebody sells something to somebody else that sees the value in it, and they both win. And generally it was actually a product. And the founding fathers were very concerned about all this, but we don't seem to be today. What we're concerned with nowadays is K Street. K Street is where all the lobbyists go. The lobbyists that make $600,000, $700,000 a year and make suits that would feed people for a long, long time. And they influence government. And government likes this because it helps fund them to stay in power. But what it does is it reduces the sense of capitalism where, number one, you're actually producing something that's good or service for the people. Number two, that it's not all that highly regulated because it's in smaller groups, many, many small businesses. Up until this point in our country, most people were getting employed, about 80% new jobs were in small businesses. But small businesses can't compete with K Street and large businesses that say to the congressman, you know, if you do it this way, if you regulate business this way, I can push out all the small businessmen, but we big banks will do very well. But then you'll only have 8 big banks to deal with, not all these small little community banks. That's what's happening right now. So why am I talking like that as a coroner? Because I'm seeing that we are having an increase in all kinds of drug use. But don't think of it at first as a drug. We don't have to ask why heroin's a problem. We have to ask why despair is the problem. Because despair is what is being anesthetized. They're in pain. They're either in pain because there's no moral reality nowadays, or they're in pain because they can't see a hope out of an endless cycle. So what do we do when we have pain? Well, if I have pain, I'll take an aspirin, ibuprofen, or something like that. But if you have the kind of deep pain that there's no hope, you're going to take something much stronger. That's one part of our society. And that's one thing I see, because when you study how people die, you study how we live. And the next step is, when you have no hope, how do you anesthetize yourself? Well, we are a pill nation. We want a pill for everything. We want a pill for sex. We want a pill to feel good. We want a pill to lose weight. We want a pill to make us look better or our skin darker, you know, any of these things. The prescribing of opioids, commercial opioids, in this country is insane. It is absolutely insane. And doctor shoppers are everywhere, and then there's also doctors that are willing to sell it. The control of it has not been consistent. And there are missing opioids from the drug company to the pharmacy, robberies, pilfering, that type of thing. It is very easy, but expensive to give OxyContin on the street, oxycodone, those things. But we live in a society where mom and dad, if there is a mom and dad in the house, and that's now 50% of the time not true, but mom and dad have a medicine cabinet. Now, people are running around talking about locking up guns, but the far more dangerous thing is a medicine cabinet. Because you got kids that are 12, 13, 14 years old now that are going in and getting all kinds of commercial opioids and antidepressants, benzodiazepines, you know, all these psychotropic drugs, and using them because mom and dad use them. Everybody uses them. The TV says they're all good. You'll have maybe occasional anal linkage and you'll see Satan, but other than that, everybody in the ad is smiling, right? And so there we are, and we have the advertisement that pharmaceuticals will take care of everything. They'll take care of all your pain, all your problems. No matter whether it's back pain or psychological pain. What happens is these kids get started early. And they get started early on generally something like OxyContin, oxycodone, one of those things, opioids. But they're expensive if they have to get out on the street, and if mom and dad, they've been to grandma's medicine cabinet, she doesn't have any anymore. So what do? You go out and buy very inexpensive heroin. And it's in a pure state nowadays, so you can snort heroin and still get a good high. And so they say, well, I'm snorting, I'm not shooting up. But it's the same thing. What can we do? What can do? How can we change this? And I'm afraid that we're always asking the wrong questions and we're getting silly answers. It doesn't matter if we're asking about gun control or heroin abuse. The question is, how can we stop heroin? You're not going to. Heroin production in Afghanistan this year was higher than it's ever been. Our borders are wide open. It's going to come through. If there's users here, there's sellers. And that's the bottom line. So the real question that we have to ask when any of these, quote unquote, from the CDC, epidemics is, why are they occurring? And then be honest enough to look at them. I'm looking at kids that come from broken homes. There is no stability in the homes. If you go over here to Harrisburg school system, the average kid has to move every 8 months. So when you say, go home and do your homework, where the hell is home? That's the kind of instability I'm talking about. I'm talking about kids that have drugs in the house, that the parents are users. I'm talking about an emptiness that has to be filled somehow, and opioids and heroin